Hey, this is Jack Russell from Jack Russell's Great White, and you listen to Focus on Metal. Ha ha.
Focus on metal.
Hey, Metalhead, Scott Thompson here, welcoming you to yet another week of Focus on Metal. So before I go any further, just want to give a big shout out to our buddy Brian Heaton, frequent Focus on Metal contributor. And just because when the last episode came out, I think Brian probably hit me up with feedback within like an hour of it being up there. Always appreciate the great stuff Brian does for us. Hopefully have him back on the show again soon. And if you really want to know what's up in the world of Brian Heaton, then you should check out the great book that he co-authored called Building an Empire, The Story of Queensryche. Or you can hit up his great site, anybodylistening.net. So this will be the first of 2 weeks of Richie sitting down and talking with Michael Lardie of Great White. And Richie has been chasing this one down for a while, and the occasion being that it is the 30th anniversary of their release, Psycho City, which is their last studio release that they did with Capitol. So yep, for the next 2 weeks, Richie and Michael will be talking all things Great White, a lot about Michael's early career, and, of course, Psycho City. And as we were going through and mixing and editing this episode, I was thinking about it, and, we've actually had quite a few people from Great White on the show over the years. Back in 2017, episode 321, we had Jack Russell on. In 2019, episode 420, we had Tony Montana, and then pretty much just recently, episode 493, back in March of 2021, we had Mark Kendall on the show. And I guess if you really want to be a completist on Great White history, we can also reach back to January of 2016, episode 267, where we had guest Sean McNabb, because, even Sean McNabb at one point back in the history of Great White was in the band. And, of course, all of those interviews can be found at focusonmetalpod.com, on Amazon Music, and, of course, on iTunes. So I'm thinking that's probably everybody from Great White we've had on the show at one time or another, but who knows? I could have missed somebody because they actually have gone through quite a few members in the latter years of the band. So anyways, as I was saying, Richie's been tracking this one down for a while. He talked to me months ago talking about trying to get a hold of Michael, and they were going back and forth and trying to get just the right time to do this. And Richie finally was able to nail him down. They had a great chat, and as I said, we're going to be rolling this out over the next 2 weeks. And also, like I said, the big subject that, we caused this whole meetup was the September 1992 release of Psycho City. As I said, the last one that they did for Capitol Records, at least the last studio album. You had Jack Russell on there, Mark Kendall, Michael Lardie, Audie Desbro on drums. And they, at that point in time, no actual bassist in the band, and Dave Spitz, Danny Spitz's brother, steps in and does bass for the album as well. And they have a couple other extra people in there. But that is pretty much the cast of characters. And the album was actually produced by Alan Niven, who was their manager, as well as Michael Lardie. And, lots of hopes on this one coming after Hooked, but this is definitely one, too. They talk about it where, and this seems to be a common theme, they decide that they're just going to go for it. And at this point, they're pretty sick of the label, and you can tell with some of the songs that they have on here as well that there's pretty much a lot of undercurrent of, hey, fuck you. But I will let Michael tell all about that and more as he talks to Richie about all things Great White, Michael Lardie, and Psycho City. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Richie and Great White's Michael Lardie.
Hi, is that Michael?
Yeah, good morning. Is that Richie?
It is. How you doing, Michael?
Good. How you doing?
I'm okay. So you're on the West Coast?
On the West Coast today, and then heading out toward Manistee, Michigan this afternoon.
Okay, you got shows this weekend?
Yeah, we got a show with Slaughter on Saturday, so we're traveling today.
Okay. How much rehearsal do you guys do now for the show?
It's not a bunch. We try to do it, whenever we're trying to do maybe perhaps a major overhaul on the set, and or we've been off for, over a month and a half. That's kind of our bar. If we haven't played anywhere in 6 weeks, we kind of say we really should at least have one rehearsal. I think that helps keep us sharp. Now, obviously, when you're banging out 2 and 3 a week, week after week, by midsummer, you're rolling and you're in monster mode. You're definitely handling it. So
yeah,
that's what we try to do. Yeah.
How easy is it, Michael, to get you guys together to rehearse? Or is there big distances between a lot of you?
Not so bad. 2 of us are in Vegas, 2 of us in LA, and 1's in Florida. So it's kind of as far as getting the band together, we're all kind of on the west side. So when we pull in a rehearsal, we try to think about when that's going to happen and do the planning for it. So it's not super difficult. So we can still pull it off. I mean, unfortunately, it's not like we're 26 and all lived 6 blocks from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It always fascinates me, the bands now that go out and do the fly-in shows, that in a lot of ways it's beneficial to them. They can do what they need to do during the week and then go out and do the shows. But then on the other hand, it is difficult to rehearse because the only time you have together is actually playing the shows.
Yeah, and it's a way of life that has changed touring, pretty much forever for our genre of music. Because buses and fuel are just astronomical in terms of costs. And like you said, we get the opportunity to be home for a couple days a week and have some assemblage of handling our lives instead of being out straight for 7 months and feeling like, where do I live?
Has that ever happened to you over the years where you've no idea where you are when you wake up?
That's never happened to me personally, but I can say that a couple of my bandmates have said that. And, other bands that occurs to all the time. One time I remember we were on tour with, we were the headliner and we had Bullet Boys and Steelheart opening up for us. And I think it was Steelheart's first major tour. And poor Mike, he got on stage one night and said, "Welcome, Ohio," which is an amalgam of, it's a cross-pollination of Iowa and Ohio, which we had been in 2 times that week. So, it can happen to us. As far as recently, because there's so much planning involved in where you have to fly to and, where you're going to be this day, and the fact that there's not so many shows directly in a row, you have a far greater chance of having that not occur.
Michael, when was the last time you went to Europe to play?
I'm trying to think. I want to say in 19, or was it 17? We did a Monsters of Rock cruise that went out of Marseille and went around the Mediterranean and ended up in Spain. I think that's the last time we went over to Europe. We were supposed to go and do Firefest, but then that mean old COVID came along and kind of threw a monkey wrench in that. So I know that they're still got us in the hopper, to when he puts back together that festival again, we're at the top of the heap there as far as the bands he wants to be out.
Nice. Well, one of the reasons I have you on is we're going to talk about the Psycho City record, which is 30 years old this year, if you can believe that.
Hard to imagine, but
yeah.
Yes, 1992.
92, yeah. Do you play any of those songs in the set currently?
We do. We're doing Big Goodbye, and occasionally, I've been trying to get them to look at working up Never Trust a Pretty Face Again, because that's one of those ones that would be a great opener. It's so ballsy and so in your face, you know. So it could be something, but everybody seems amenable to the concept. So, you know, perhaps by the next time we get over there, get over to the European side of life, we're going to have an opportunity to play. And we always try to make a little bit heavier set for Europe, because I think they really appreciate, you know, that part of our catalog.
Yeah. Do you think Europe got you guys a little bit earlier than the American audience did? That, you know, they've stuck with you over the years. They're a little bit more loyal.
It's interesting. We had, you know, before I was actually in the band, and it was, I think it was originally Jack, Mark, Gary Holland, and Lord Black. They went over and toured the UK with Whitesnake before their big record, you know, their huge record.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that really kind of established them as a band that people would want to see. And then later, when we had, you know, great success in the States, when we went back over in '89 with Alice Cooper, and we were really appreciated at that point. And, you know, even though we don't go that often, we're very lucky that, you know, there's a great number of fans that come and you know, and see the shows and are definitely excited about seeing us. So, you know, we're grateful that they have, you know, not forgotten about us, so to speak. Although, you know, that's always been my viewpoint on, you know, American audiences obviously are so incredibly fickle, as you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, once you accomplish something, you know, my experience over in Europe, it kind of sticks with you for your life. You know, the fact that people are aware of what you've accomplished creatively. In the States, it can be a little bit, what have you done this week? You know?
So, Michael, I want to get into Psycho City with you, but I have to ask you about the album before that, Hooked. Now, I've read Mark doing in interviews that he said that he wasn't entirely happy with that album, that he felt that it was a little bit rushed. Is that something that you agree with?
Well, you know, we're part of the machinery at that point. You know, we've just come off Twice Shy and sold nearly 3 million records. So you get to a point where you're getting pushed to put out the next piece of product. And, you know, as far as being rushed, I mean, we were starting to write songs in late summer of '91 and didn't start recording, I think, until the end of September. And we spent almost 3 months on the record. I think everybody, why it was feeling rushed is things were so heady at that time as far as the success we were experiencing that nobody really had a chance to take a breath, so to speak.
I've heard that from a lot of musicians over the years, that it was on the road, in the studio, on the road, in the studio. You were never able to, like, taste the success that you had and savor it.
Yeah, that's part of the machinery, you know, the record companies. I mean, I know Don Henley had said that about what was going on with the Eagles, you know, and Joe Walsh said that as well. He said, you know, it didn't matter if we burped or we farted, they just had to meet their corporate quarter, you know. So that happens to, you know, mega groups, and it certainly happens to groups that have been successful on our level. It's the same thing. The record companies push to get new product out there. As far as the recording process, I didn't feel like it was rushed really at all. I mean, you know, we took our time to make sure, there were probably about half the record, we looked at the basic tracks on it, you know, about half the record, and said, no, they don't have the right feel yet, so we went back and redid those. So that would be a lot more time we spent on that part of it than we ever had before. Yeah, so, you know, for me, I came up being a musician and a studio guy, so to me, being there was like being home, so it never felt rushed to me. It's like, oh, another day in the studio? Cool, you know?
Michael, how did you end up being a producer in the band? I know you're an engineer, but was that something that you fought for, or did the guys ask you to do it?
It was kind of a very organic thing. I remember when they came in to record the demos for Shot in the Dark, they were talking about wanting to expand their sound, to have an extra guitar player and keyboards and some of the music. And, they had the idea. So, I just happened to be working at the studio they recorded at. And I said, I can come up with some parts for you. I can do that. Let's check it out, And, played the parts on the records. And before you knew it, I was playing with them live. And then the band got re-signed to Capitol after losing their original deal with EMI in, I think it was 83. They lost the deal, or early 84. And the band got re-signed by Capitol in 86. It was at that point that they were going and visiting all kinds of producers. They were talking to Tom Werman. They were talking to Ken Scott. They're talking to the guy, Michael James Jackson, I think his name was. A lot of different guys. And everybody felt that they weren't really getting what we were about and what we were trying to do. So the band's manager at the time, Alan Niven, came to me and said, is there any reason you can think that you and I couldn't do these records? And I said, yeah, sure. I mean, we know what we want. We would know what we'd like it to sound like. And I, being an engineer, I have the ability to, convey my thoughts, and you convey your thoughts, and I can, absorb them and make them happen. So it was a very organic thing. It just kind of came up in conversation like that. So Capitol didn't quite know what to do with us at that point. They had just re-signed us, so they kind of left us in a very autonomous situation, which was great. We recorded at the beach, which was about 30 miles away from Hollywood, which the joke was it's harder to get a record exec 30 miles away to the beach than it would be to get on a plane and fly to New York. So we were left to our own devices pretty much. And with Once Bitten, the album, we had a chance to really develop where we thought we were our best, and that certainly was, Mark's blues guitar playing, which oddly enough, when we were working on, I was actually an assistant engineer and a staffer at the place they recorded the very, very first album, the Black Album. And I would hear Mark warm up between takes on these songs that were, reminiscent of, Judas Priest and Van Halen. The band, to me, it sounded like that at that time. But I would hear him play the blues, and I would sit and talk to him and talk about our love of Johnny Winter and Alvin Lee and all those guys. And I was just thinking, when I would watch Mark play that stuff, I felt like, his soul was escaping his body, like he was showing me something that he felt really connected with, So I thought to myself, that's what this cat should be playing, man. That's where he shines, And it just was like I said, it was a very organic thing. We got together and we're starting to write songs, and it was just one of those things that, it was the right combination of people and time and circumstance to allow us the opportunity to develop our sound. Yeah.
Now, you and Alan produced the records, but I'm curious to know, what did he do as a producer that you didn't do, and vice versa? How did you break all that up?
I think Alan was probably more about arrangement of songs. That was one of his fortes. He was good at that for the blues format that we were doing. As far as breaking down like what kind of part we should sing for a background part, or what extra guitar part should go on, or what the sound of the keyboard was, that was kind of more my thing. But as far as writing the songs, Alan was wrote a lot of the lyrics, in those earlier albums. So he felt connected to the music. So in many ways it was two brains working toward one goal. So it was again very organic. We were able to make that happen.
Was it easy for you to produce a band that you're in? Because you have to be critical of a band member's performance, and sometimes they mightn't take it very well.
I think that I always tried to be honest with them from the very beginning when I was working with them, as a staff engineer. They would ask, just as a guy they knew was a musician and also happened to be an engineer, and they would ask me my opinion, and I would tell them. I'd always be straight with them. It was never my intention to be, spiteful or cruel or mean. Just to be honest and forthright with my opinion of what was going on at the time. And I think of all the people I was hardest was upon myself. I spent many hours in the studio by myself working out parts, trying 40, 50 different things as to not take away the time that I was going to get the best out of Mark or the best out of Jack during the day or the evening. So I relegated, the time I had for experimentation, late at night. And it worked out well. I mean, playing around with the idea I had for the harmonica on Rock Me, that was, not anything I was going to make anybody sit through while I was working it out. And then the next morning they came in and the joke got to be, all right, what did you get up to last night? So, it was a lot of fun for me to be able to be there and be present for them as the producer engineer guy during the day and the evening when Mark and Jack were, it was important to be, close with them and be supportive of them. And then at night I could, play around, and it was a really cool combination of things. It was, we were able to do most of our records in about 45 days, including mastering. So you're talking recording, mixing, and mastering in 45 days, which was pretty swift for a lot of bands of that time, And we were spending probably 40% of what most bands were spending on records. We certainly made our record company happy.
I was actually going to ask you that, Michael, that the record company would have been happy because they weren't hiring a Bob Rock or a Tom Werman, that it was being kept in-house.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, I think a lot of people don't realize about that. They pay the money, but of course they get the money from record sales from Note 1. When we have to pay back a producer, or we have to pay back a studio, or we have to pay back this or that, it comes out of our royalty rate. So for every dollar we spent on a studio, say $100,000, we could only pay back 13% from every record we sold. So it took quite a long time.
Yeah.
So, record companies were kind of like the bank. They put the money forth, and then we were, able to pay back at the rate we were able to pay back, and they got their money back, the 87% straight off from every record from the very first record. So it took a while every time to pay back, but certainly not as long as it took for a $250,000-$300,000 recording budget. 4 videos that cost $300,000 a piece. We did everything, economically, because we were a band that was really about, the music, and our image was just that we were, just straightforward blues rockers, and it made a difference from us being able to see, income from our records faster than most bands.
Did you have a good relationship with Alan Niven?
Yeah, I think that there was, during the time that we were working together, I think that it worked out well. I mean, we were close and, of like mind, and as we tried to, later in our career, as we tried to stretch out and try different things, obviously, one person might not see it that way, and it got to a point where, it was becoming more of two camps, management, co-producer versus, saw things one way and the band saw things another way. So, there's a shelf life, I think, of any relationship in music, especially, where you get to a point where you realize, okay, we got some great stuff and we did some great things, but it's time to try something different. And that's, to me, that's part of the creative process.
Now, of course, Tony Montana left after you did the Hooked album. And you would have been in the studio a lot with him doing that record. And I don't know how much you were with him on the tour personally, but when did you get a sense that he wasn't happy in the band, and were you surprised that he left?
I think it was starting to get toward the end of the Hook tour, and then on rehearsals for Psycho City, where we were actually writing the tunes, he wasn't very present at that time, and I don't think he was particularly happy with his role in the band. He was actually a very good guitar player, and I think he was young and took the gig as a bass player and realized after about 4.5, 5 years that, this is the way my life is going to be going. I'm still young enough. I think I want to try something different. And that's just, what we did. We ended up using Dave Spitz on the recording, Danny Spitz's brother.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic bass player, great New Yorker guy, great personality, huge personality. And I thought he did some great stuff on Psycho City.
Yeah. Now, when you finished the Hook tour, the Hooked album was released in February 91, and you brought out Psycho City in September 92. That's a pretty quick turnaround. So, was the plan always to do a record the following year? What circumstances came about to get it done that quickly?
I think one of the biggest things is during the transition of right after Twice Shy and into Hooked, the company had changed presidents from Don Zimmerman to Hale Milgram, who used to be at Elektra. And Hale came in and had a different set of priorities as far as the artists that he wanted to push. So he pretty much told the company, all this heavy metal, hard rock, I don't so much care about, but you got to spend all your energy on Bonnie Raitt and bands he basically pushed her to get her to a point where she became huge. So we kind of felt like they weren't in love with us anymore at that point, as far as the record company was concerned. So I think with the little amount of input they gave to and work they gave to promoting Hooked, to us was disappointing. So we wanted to get one more record before we left the company out, and I felt like we were at a point where we were very confident in terms of our writing, and felt like we were very, we had something to say. We were a little disillusioned from how they treated us at a point, and then how on a dime that can change so quickly. So I think there is an edge to Psycho City that is prevalent throughout in terms of disillusionment with business and in life too. I mean, our relationships were a little bit tortured in our personal life at that point. So that's where I think the inspiration for a lot of Psycho City came from.
Michael, looking back on it now, do you think you handled success well yourself? That you would have had all these things thrown at you. You probably would have been getting these pretty big checks at the time. Were you okay with all of that?
I think I did okay with it. I think if I had to look back and have any regrets about any of it, is that I was always so self-possessed about working and what the next thing was going to be, what was the next accomplishment, that I, unlike my band members, didn't take enough time to really kind of enjoy the success. But that's what worked for me. It would have been nice had I been able to take a breath, like we talked about earlier. Yeah. I was so possessed about what could be better, how we could do it better, what could be a better song that we wrote, what could be a new sound we could try, a new instrument I could try on the records. But I was always a workaholic ever since I was a young kid. I just started working in clubs and such when I was 14, 15 years old. I was already out working with bands at nightclubs. I had to sit outside on breaks, but what do they say? If you find something you love, you're lucky enough to never work a day in your life. And that's what I feel like my life has been.
Okay. The first big check you got from Great White. Can you remember what you spent it on?
Audie and I, the drummer, bought a condo. I remember that. And then after a year, I bought him out so he could move in and buy a house and move in with his girlfriend. But I think that was the first big thing I remember, that, $25,000 down, on a property, a place to live. It was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to rent anymore.
Yeah. So back then, around the time of Psycho City, who was your best friend in the band?
Gosh, I think, it really had to be pretty much everybody. I was so close with everyone. I mean, we recorded it at a residence. We pulled up a mobile truck and we lived together. So it was like we were having breakfast and lunch together every day, and, living there, and, just rehearsals, everybody was present, and, it was just a lot of fun to be that immersed in what we were doing.
All right, so we're going to chop that one off for the week right there. Part of this with the longer episodes and the shorter ones is that, I've been doing a lot of watching YouTube lately rather than watching regular TV or Netflix or anything. And I've been kind of mixing it up the same way. It seems to be a more satisfying experience when I'm watching, a 2-hour rock documentary, and then I go to a shorter, 30-minute thing from, let's say, JHS Pedals or something. And so I'm trying that out for Focus on Metal as well. Give you some long ones and then some kind of short, bite-sized ones as well. So that's what we're doing with this one, is kind of chopping Michael 2 bite-sized pieces for you. And, hey, we'll see how it works out. But like I said, there'll be the second half of this will hit you for next week. But before we get out of here, I just want to just let you know, you may know this already because it's been was announced, probably about a week ago, but they do have the Holy Diver Super Deluxe Edition that is coming out in July. That looks really cool. Obviously, I am a physical media whore, so I am all over this. But there's a 4 CD deal, which has got CD 1 is the brand new 2022 Joe Barresi mix of the album. CD 2 is a remaster, just done regular, of the album. CD 3 is live at the Selland Arena in '83. CD 4 is outtake singles and B-sides. So there's things on there like an early mix of Evil Eyes in there, and a couple of things of Rainbow in the Dark, and some other stuff in there as well. It looks pretty cool. I'm definitely going to be getting that one. And then also, if that is not enough, and I've been looking around the day I'm mixing this, I've been looking, I still don't see it available yet, but they also are going to have a 2-disc clear vinyl pressing of this, with side 1 has got the first 4 songs off the album. Side 2 of the first one has got Don't Talk to Strangers, Straight Through the Heart, Invisible. On side 3, which is, LP2 side 1, you got Rainbow in the Dark and Shame on the Night. And also the bonus track of Evil Eyes on here, which was a bonus B-side of Holy Diver when this originally came out back in '83. And then side 4, which is, LP2 side 2, is actually going to have an etching on it. And those always look really cool as well. I've had a Doro release that is on white vinyl, in which the 4th side has got an etched Doro logo. Looks pretty cool. So I know that at least the 4 CD edition, I saw that on pre-order available at Amazon. I haven't really seen it anywhere. I lie. I've seen it on Rhino as well. And like I said, as I'm mixing this tonight, I still don't see this available anywhere else. But this is supposed to come out on July 8th, which is to tie in with the celebration of what would have been Ronnie's 80th birthday on July 10th. So, yep, Ronnie and I, birthday date-wise, only a couple of days apart, more than a couple of years apart. So there you go. I always get psyched when I see new Ronnie stuff out. And, part of that, too, is that I've been reading Martin Popoff's great new book, or kind of, I guess, a rebook in a way, Dream Evil Dio in the 80s. Awesome book. So I was already psyched when this announcement came out. And, again, it's Dio. It's one of those ones, I just have to get it. So for this week, that's it. There ain't no more. Stick a fork in it. This puppy is done. So for Richie, myself, and everybody else here at Focus on Metal, have yourselves a great metal week. And until we talk to you again next week, as always, remember...
Focus on Metal! Everything else is insignificant.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.